Today we're going to cover customary conversion. We're going to do a review of everything and focus on the idea of time. That's going to be our primary focus, but we're going to review the other things. Remember that time is the same across the world. It's one of the few constants that you're ever going to have. And this flow chart will help you determine how do you go from hours to minutes to seconds. You don't really need to go to days or decades or weeks or weekends, but you do need to be able to go from hours to minutes to seconds. And this flow chart down here is going to help you. Remember, the bottom, that's going to be like your red numbers, and the top, you don't have to circle this, but that's going to be what we call our blue numbers. And remember, whenever you're converting, when it comes to pretty much anything we've talked about so far with customary and with time, you won't use decimals. Your remainder is going to be your smaller unit. So if you're going from, let's say, seconds to minutes, you say, okay, you have this many seconds. How many minutes would that be? If you divide it and it doesn't work out perfectly, you're not going to have a decimal. You are going to have a remainder, which is kind of unnormal, especially because we've been working a lot with decimal division. But in real life, you will have some remainders. Now, what I'm going to do, if you look at this page and you look at the next page, basically you have all the four types of different conversions. I'm going to do the first two, and y'all are going to do the second two problems. There's 4 problems of each. I'm going to show you how I would do it, and over to the side, I'm going to have some scratch work just if I need it. So the first problem, I'm going from hours to seconds. So I'm going from hours to seconds. So it looks like I'm going to have to travel these blue arrows. So I'm going to have to multiply by 60 twice. So that means if I was to set up a problem, it would be 7, because that's how many hours we have, times 60 to see how many minutes are in 7 hours, and then times 60 again to figure out how many seconds are in those minutes. So in 7 hours, 7 times 6 is 42, add a 0. In 7 hours, there is 420 minutes. And let's see how many seconds that is. 420 times 60. Not going to be insanely fun, but we can do it. I'm just going to do 42 times 6 and then add my 1, 2 zeros at the end. 2 times 6 is 12. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. And I'll add my 2 zeros. So that means that in 7 hours, there is 25,200 seconds. Notice I'm going from a large unit to a small unit, so that means I'm going to be multiplying. The next problem, I'm going from seconds to minutes. So I'm not going to follow the blue arrows, I'm going to follow the red arrows, and I'm going to be dividing. So how would I set this up? Well, I start with 378, and I'm going to divide it by 60 because there is 60 seconds in 1 minute. I'm trying to figure out, well, how many is 378 going to be? So the 378 goes in the house. The 60 goes on the outside. How many times can 60 go into 3? It can't. How many times can 60 go into 37? It can't. How many times can 60 go into 378? Well, estimation is going to be helpful. I know that 6 times 6 is 36, so let's try 6. 6 times 60 is 360. I subtract, I get 18, so I have 6 with the remainder of 18. So what that's saying is that how many times if you have 378 seconds, how many minutes is that? Well, that is actually going to be 6 minutes and 18 seconds. So you're going to use the idea of how you convert with time to do the last problem, number 3 and number 4. Once you do that, you can go ahead and do it and pause the video, or you can come with me to the next page, which we are going to cover length, and then we're going to talk about capacity, and then we're going to talk about weights. So let's start out with length. I'm going to do the first two problems. It's the same idea. Once you have the flow chart, figure out where you're starting and figure out where you're ending. I'm going from yards to inches, so that means I'm going to have to follow the blue numbers. So I'm going from 7 yards. I've got to figure out on 7 yards how many feet are there. And then after that, I'm going to figure out how many inches. So 7 times 3 times 12. You can do it whatever way you want. You can do 7 times 3 first. You can do 7 times 12 first. You can do 3 times 12. It's all going to equal the same thing. I'll just go in order. 7 times 3 is 21. Bring down the times 12. Now I'm going to have to zoom it in, work it out. What is 21 times 12? 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Skip a line and put a 0. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. And I need to add these two numbers. So this is saying that in 7 yards there is 252 inches. Now the next one, I'm going from inches the other way to yards. So I'm going to have to do the division. This is not going to be wildly fun, but that's okay. What I'm actually going to do is, because I'm going to have yards and I'm not going to have my remainder in feet, it's going to be in inches, I'm going to combine these two numbers. I'm going to combine those two numbers. So I'm going to do what is 12 times 3, that's 36. So I'm really actually going to do 49 divided by 36. You say, well, why is that? Well, because there is in 1 yard, you don't have to write this down, but in 1 yard, there is 36 inches. And if I'm starting with inches, my remainder is going to be inches. So how many times can 49 go into get divided by 36? Not many times. 36 is outside the house. 49 is inside. 36 can go into 49 one time, because 1 times 36 is 36. I subtract, I get 13, so I have 1 with the remainder of 13. So that means that if you have 49 inches, that would work out perfectly as 1 yard with a remainder of 13 inches. Now let's get, it's not labeled, but this is capacity. This is a lot to do with liquid. So that's why you have fluid ounces. And I'm going to do the first two. I'm going from 176 cups. Oh my, that's a lot of cups. And I'm going to quarts. Instead of doing 176 divided by 2, then divided by 2, I'm going to combine my 2's, and 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm going to do 176 divided by 4. And say, okay, how many times does it go in? Luckily, this one's going to work out perfectly. The 176 is inside the house. 4 is outside. 4 can go into 17 4 times. Subtract. And 4 can go into 16 4 times. That one worked out beautifully. So there is 44 quarts in 176 cups. Now, I should have erased this. I'll do a different color, blue. I'm going from pints to fluid ounces. Pints to fluid ounces. So I'm starting with 9 pints. I'm going to have to do 9 times 2 to figure out how many pints, how many cups are in 9 pints. And then I'm going to have to multiply that by 8 to figure out how many fluid ounces is in that many cups. 9 times 2 is 18. Bring down my 8. And I can work it out over to the side, but I know that 8 times 8 is 64. And 8 times 1 is 8, plus 6 is 14. So there's exactly 144 fluid ounces in 9 pints. Now, just like the other ones, you can pause the video and work out the rest, or if you want to, you can just go with me to the next section, then go back and do the other ones. The next one, what makes weight so good is that you're only going to have 3 things you can jump between: ounces, pounds, tons. Tons are really big, pounds are kind of big, ounces are super tiny. So I'm going to do the first one, going from pounds to ounces. I'm multiplying by 16. Remember, follow the arrows. 7 times 16, well, 7 times 6 is 42. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 4 is 11. There's 112 ounces in 7 pounds. And here I'm going from tons to ounces. Well, that's not going to be fun to multiply because I'm going to have to multiply my answer by 2,000 and then by 16. But that's okay, we can do it. So 3 times 2,000 times 16. Well, 3 times 2 is 6 with 1, 2, 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. Cross that out. So now I have 6,000 times 16. Let me show you how I would do it. I would actually put the 16 up top and the 6 over here with all my zeros, because I can just add those in. Go ahead and drop those zeros. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 1 plus 3 is 9, so that means there is 96,000 ounces in 3 tons. 96,000 ounces in 3 tons. And then you have those last 2 problems. Now below that you have a review where you're going from your rounding, then you're multiplying decimals, subtracting decimals, dividing decimals, and the bottom section is just fluency, filling in the blanks. Now you are going to have to do these problems on the rest of the problems on the back, and if you remember, the rest of the problems on the front. I'm going to post the answers just so you can check your work versus mine. Yes, I know that you have no way of proving to see if you actually worked this stuff out. You could have just copied my answers, but that's not going to help you come test time, and we are going to have a test pretty soon after we come back. So I would take the time to practice this to see if you're ready or see what you're still having problems with. And if you are still struggling, go back and watch this video, go back and watch the other videos on customary conversion. The biggest thing is, can you figure out your flowchart? Can you divide? Can you multiply? If you can do that, you're in really good shape. Thanks for watching. If you can, like it. If you can't, not a big deal, but please make sure to come back to see my other videos. Thanks.